Let's see if this works.
Oh.
All right. Fingers crossed, please.
Yeah.
Por favor, Diosito, por favor, que esta vez resuelve, porque ya son las 9:21. Van a decir todos, no, pues un live que nomás duró 25 minutos. Y si no, esta vez no sé qué vamos a hacer. Ok. Todavía no lo veo, pero...
Mine says live on Facebook.
Yeah, now we are live.
¿Sí?
El mío también, ya.
Yeah.
Ok.
Sí, ahora sí.
Ahora sí. Perfecto. Okay. Let's hear talk about. Okay. So let's do this. Let's do this. Likes your live video. Okay, great. But I don't see it. It's so funny. So the only reason I want to see it so that in case people have comments, we can address those comments as they come in. But let's just dive into this conversation, yeah, because we've been waiting and waiting to do this. And so let's dive into this conversation. Yes. Oh, I see her. Kaisha Blake has reacted to my video. Thank you, Kaisha. Yes. Fabulous. Okay. So let's start. Let's start. I'm going to start with just introducing everyone here again. Welcome to our Madison Latinx talkback on anti-Blackness in the Madison Latino community as we see it. I want to frame this conversation. There are so many reasons that Black people and Latinos are linked. We are linked for many reasons of oppression because we're living here in the United States, but we're also complicit. Latinos are also complicit to the systems of Black oppression. Just like, you know, our proximity to Black people and Afro-Latinos in our families internalize this racism, and it runs deep in the Latino community. Anti-Blackness is ingrained in our community. It's something that is often swept under the rug. We have a long way to go to break down the hundreds of years of white supremacy. But as other people have written, you know, to refuse to be active in Black Lives Matter movement right now is to deny ourselves the alliance that's just not necessary but mandatory in our fight for collective freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
When I read those words,
Together we're stronger.
We're
Yes.
way stronger. That's right.
Yes, together we're way stronger. So today we have Natalia Hilder with us. She draws from her indigenous Andean roots. From years of travel to India as a dancer, a poet, activist, and teacher, she now focuses on fighting toxic social norms through community outreach education within her communities. Renowned in her field as a dancer and performing artist who utilizes her craft as a means of raising a consciousness in social justice issues. She continues to find ways of dismantling white supremacy, patriarchy, and homophobia. Ooh, dang! I want that bio to tell you.
Vamos, ahí vamos.
Oh, yes. Way better than mine.
That's a
One day at a
bio.
time.
Yes, girl.
One day at a time. We also have with us Carmen Contreras. Carmen has come to Madison when she was with her family when she was 5 years old. Besides college, she has resided in Madison most of her life. She grew up on the east side.
Yes, right. I'm still here.
Yes, she is. She's the daughter of Mexican immigrant workers. Her sister and herself are both co-owners of Sophie's Spot,
Yes.
which is located at 626 Langdon Street. And, you know, on June 2nd, her store was broken into and ransacked. 90% of her store structures and inventories were damaged. She is sad about what happened because it took her 2 years to open. To see everything torn down in a matter of minutes broke her heart. We don't believe that this happened because of the protests or because of the Black Lives Matters, she says. We believe it was opportunists, provocateurs who entered our store. The store is only 1 year old. I am for the Black Lives Matter movement, always have been, always will be. The situation with our store did not deter us from what we believe, and I will always back what is right.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank
100%.
you. Thank you so much. And then we have with us Giselia Maderno is Afro-Latina who has been engaging in communities of color directly through artistic, cultural, and professional work as an ambassador for Afro-Peruvian culture, which is her ethnicity. And she has many examples. She grew up in Lima, Peru, immersed with traditional Afro-Peruvian culture, where art, music, and dance are a way of indistinguishable from food, family, and friends. She studied at the business at the University of Callao.
Callao.
in Peru and migrated to the U.S. in 2005, almost 15 years ago.
Time
That's,
flies.
yeah, she came here with a dream of pursuing and becoming a nurse. She graduated from UW-Madison with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing in 2019. During her time at UW-Madison, she co-founded a group called Nurses Without Barriers. This is amazing. To help her fellow nursing students and faculty at all levels learn basic, pertinent Spanish language skills to gain comfort in forming therapeutic relationships with Spanish-speaking clients in their community. So this is, and then not only is she a nurse, not only is she here with us today, but she also is the director of Mosaic, an Afro-Peruvian cultural dance group, which was formed in June of 2013 with her sister-in-law, Natalia Hilder, in order to share the rich culture of heritage of Peru and the American audiences. Their mission is preserving culture and tradition, especially for the young generation of Peruvian Americans who are growing up in the U.S. Mosaic means mosaic in Spanish to represent the incredible diversity of Peruvian culture. So welcome to our talk.
Giselle.
We have some amazing Latinas in this talk bag. So I'm really excited to start this and Peruvian culture. I'm really excited to start this conversation. Hello?
Hello.
Algo pasó.
Hello?
I can. I don't know what happened.
I think we're still good. It's just maybe
better?
a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah,
great
we're
panel
good.
says Flor. Shaky? Okay. Perfect. So we have several friends watching us today. It might come in and out the Wi-Fi. I apologize for that. Can other people hear it?
Yeah, it's just putting out a
Anyone in
little
the
bit, but I
comments
can-
just let us know. Yeah, it looks like my internet was a little bit shaky. If someone can just let us know in the comments that you can hear us well now, that would be my screen. It looks frozen.
I think it's working now.
Is it working
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, we're good.
Perfect. We're good? Okay, good. So we wanted just to acknowledge all of these technical difficulties for whatever reason. The Wi-Fi keeps on coming in and out, guys. Bear with us. But also, I hope that you will take this as a call-in. Good. Okay, good. So we wanted just to I hope that you take this as a call-in to expand your own social justice, racial justice narrative and acknowledge all of the contributions that that Afro-Latinos and Black people have done in our community and so forth. So with that, hello?
Hello.
Hola.
Te escuchamos.
Okay, good, good. So one thing that Carmen had wanted to talk to us about was basically about her son being Afro-Latino and talking about that identity.
Yeah.
And how those identities are shaped and how they're also being erased. Can we talk a little bit about that, ladies? How are we erasing Afro-Latino families and identities? How do we do that as Latinos?
Yeah, well, my question was because the other night I just so happened to have the news on and they were talking about Black Lives Matter and, Black people and white people. And he goes, "Mommy, what color am I?" My husband is Dominican, so he's Afro-Dominican, so I'm Mexican. And so he asked me, he goes, when he asked me that, I didn't know what to answer. He's 8 years old because we're all different colors in my family. Even on my side of my family, there's people that are very moreno and people that look white. And then there's people that look like me that nobody thinks I'm Mexican. And then, on my husband's side, there's all colors too. So I didn't have that answer because I didn't want to raise him as a color. I want to raise him as person, as as a good human being. So that was one of my questions, like, how do you talk to your children about this?
Yeah. For me, I also have a son. His name is Amaru, and on him conflude many cultures. My husband is Natalia's brother, so for that side of his family, he is white and also indigenous Peruvian. And from my side of the family, he's Afro-Peruano.
Right.
So what I try to teach him is that he is unique and he is a mix of all beautiful cultures, and that it's important to love every side of himself.
Yeah.
And it's important to know and to be proud of all of those sides. I think that that is one of the main issues with teenagers that come from families that are immigrants here in America, that is so shaky, their identities. They, we don't spend enough time make them proud of what the roots that they have,
So true.
to let them know about the countries where their parents are from, their history, what have been our battles, and how we fight so hard to be here, which is a nation of immigrants.
Right.
And the problem is that this nation of immigrants sometimes try to assimilate and make everything a melting pot, erasing the cultures that we came from. And
Yeah.
what we need to teach them is that those cultures that we come from is what made them what they are, but in a place where they in a different place from the place that their parents came from or their grandparents came from. If they love where they come from, who
Yeah.
they are, they will be so strong to fight injustice, to not let themselves down with things that happen around them. If we put good foundations on their identity, and we help them to be emotionally balanced with the love of themselves, I think that that will help. Always an honest conversation is the best way. It's difficult because they see themselves maybe different than the rest of their peers in school. But if they stop seeing themselves as different but as unique and valuable, we have one step forward, I think.
Thank you.
I so appreciate that. And as an educator myself, as a teaching artist, I think as an educator, as a parent, and the person that I've been in the schools several times, this is what motivated me. You know, I've been called out a lot of, recently by our own people, here in Madison, be saying, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing about your little Latinx talk back? What's that about? It's about the fact that I see Afro-Latinos in our schools who are being separated and not acknowledged. They have to leave their identity checked at the door, and they got to choose. And they can't be one or the other. And most of the time, they identify with only being Black. And that's okay. I'm not saying no to that. I'm not. But what I'm mad about is that the first, second, third generation Latinos, Chicanitos, are not, they don't bring them in the fold. They don't acknowledge their Latino-ness. They don't acknowledge that diversity. So as a light-skinned Latina, it's my duty to tell my kids, hey, they're us too. We come in all shades and colors and sizes, de todos colores, sabores, y todo eso. And that being said, I also feel like this is part of the system, right? It's also part of a larger system to conquer and divide us, and to and to more confuse us too, right? I mean, colonization happens is perpetuated over generations because of the internalized racism, the internal hate that we have for each other and for ourselves. And it manifests so many ways. So I love what you just said, Gisela, as far as manifesting the positivity of that, because there's so much negative out there for our Afro-Latino families and children.
I'm really glad you brought that up about how we model, how we talk about Latino identity, including and being fundamentally, yes, like of African descent, of indigenous descents, of European descent, of all these descents. And I remember a specific example of that. I taught for a year in MMSD 4K, little very cute, very like, it was such, I love that job. I would have stayed with it if it gave health insurance. But anyway, that's another issue. But I remember teaching, I was an assistant teacher for the DLI, dual language immersion. So it was predominantly all Latino students. And I remember, so there was only one Afro-Latino from DR. And I remember that midway through the year, some of the other kids, they started talking about him. And I want to protect, everyone's identity, but they started talking about him and they would use the word negrito. And I was like, they're 4 years old, you know, and I was so like, what's going on, And so I did everything in my power to be like, you cannot use this word, one, and two, you have to acknowledge the fact that, that's his name. What's his, and like repetition, because like every day I'd be like, okay, what's his name? And like, let's play together and, let's finding ways in which they could, and I realized that the reason they were doing, their parents would probably maybe talk about that, other people in the community like that, or, I don't know in what situation, but, they were just innocently mirroring what their parents did. And so that's where it starts, right?
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Natalia, because that term is, it can be taken a negative way and it can be taken a good way, because I
wanted to talk about that too.
Yeah, I recognize myself as a negra en español. Entre la gente, between people in our communities, it depends on how that term is give. Then it can be a term of endearment and love, or it can be a term of putting you down. And but also it's a term that it always has been put that word negro as the same level of something negative, and it's our duty to give a new context to that word, give a positive context to the word negro. It always identify negro with something negative, or negro with something dirty, or negro with something that carried something negative. But if we use it appropriately and respectfully, is what we are, is what we recognize ourselves as. But I'm totally with you. These kids mirror their parents, so we are the ones that need to teach these things to our kids, that how we treat others with respect and with love. But if they hear their parents referring in a derogative way to another people with those terms, they will repeat it, and that get engraved in their minds and in their souls, in their conscious and unconscious mind, and that's where racism starts.
And that's very true, because even in, like I go to Mexico a lot, you know, I still have family over there. And it is, like you said, it can be used as a term of love. Like my mom calls my daughter mi negrita, you know, because she's a little bit more morenita or whatever, and she's like mi negrita. And calls me prieta, okay, because my mom's very white and my dad's not. He's darker and he's the curly hair, and so she you know thought I looked more morena or something, and she called me prieta, but as a term of love, you know. And there are in Mexico they say, oh, es un indio, es un chuntaro, es un. That's when they start putting people down of the indigenous that look more indigenous than white. And that's where you're right. We have to stop that, even in our own countries. You know, it comes from a long time ago. This is not just from our parents or grandparents. It comes from our great, you know, back who knows when, you know, and it's just kept. And when we came, you know, I was born and raised in the United States. And like I told Araceli a couple days ago, the only people that we identified with in Madison, because there was very few minorities, was with the Black community and with the Hmong community, because they stuck us all in ESL. Not the Black community, but you know, the Hmongs and the Hispanic kid, or the Asian kids and the Hispanic kids were all together. And then the few Black kids that were there, we all kind of stuck together, you know. And throughout growing up, you know, that's how it was. So we were okay with that. But a lot of people that come later in life, like if they're teenagers, you know, they come with that mentality already that was ingrained from their countries. Even with my husband in the Dominican Republic, they can't see, you know, there's a lot of hatred between the Dominicans and the Haitians.
Ooh, now you just opened up
I
a
didn't
big
know that.
can of worms. Now you just opened up a big can.
And they're just as morenos as the Haitians, you know. Some are more, who knows, you know. And I'm like, why is there this divide between our, you know, own people? You
That's
know,
what
and then we want to come together here in the United States. I am going to go there. We want to come together here in the United States and yell racism when we do it ourselves in our own countries to other people. You know, so that's something that is not, that's like, that right there is being complacent and being silent as well, if we don't bring that up.
You're talking about bringing up the colonization that
exactly.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We need to bring that up. Giselle, what would you like to say?
Yeah, for centuries, colonialism has been ingrained in our ancestors as a way of living, and it's been normalized. And communities of colors, Afro-Latinos, have been invisibilized for years, centuries, until today. And that's why it's important to have these conversations. It's important to educate people about the diaspora, and help them learn that in all Latin America, there are a huge migration of people from Africa, made a slave to work in different countries in Latin America. And then they create communities that become part of Latin America. But colonialism have been ingrained so much, and colorism have been ingrained so much in our minds, in our families, in our abuelas for centuries, that is something that we need to recognize in order to fix. If we don't understand what is the problem, and we don't talk about it, it's something that we don't question our own being and our own biases and our own prejudice, then we cannot help our kids to be human and individuals that are proud of themselves. So I have seen in my communities jokes that have been normalized about Afro-Latino communities or Afro-Peruvian communities. They think that people that our Afro-Latinos are good at sports and dancing or arts, but they are not very intellectual. That's the truth. That's what the stereotype is. And there is brilliant people that have give so much from Afro Latino communities to the whole world. So that's the conversation that we need to have. For years and years in our minds, we have received this message that if your skin is lighter, you will be better treated or you are more accepted. So people have been trying to make themselves, like in MMSD, for example, many
Bring
families
it in,
that come from
bring it in,
Mexico
talk about
or
it.
come from Latin America, when they check the boxes about race or ethnicity, they check those boxes. If they see their skin's lighter than the neighbor, they will check themselves as white. And that does not help our communities because we need our families to recognize themselves as Latinos, as indigenous, as Afro, so we can receive the help that our kids need. Like you were asking the other day, Carmen, about why Afro Latinos or Latinos in general are put in ESL classes
Right.
at the beginning of
Yep.
their school years. The parents, when they enroll their children, they receive a survey indicating or asking if the family speak 50% or more of English at home. If the parent responds yes to that, then immediately that student is put on ESL. So, and of those surveys, the MMSD provide support on ESL teachers or ESL program for the students that are identified as English learners. So that's the reason that they do it. But there are certain cracks in the system that, because not all Latino families know how to navigate the systems. So sometimes the opportunities that the students have in like in secondary school
Right.
are not the same, like choosing courses, and they are evaluated once a year with the access test to see the level of fluency, and that is what will tell MMSD how many teachers they will need and how many support they will need. So that's how we get mixed with other communities that have English as a second language, like Hmong or other English as a second language learners.
Right. And with
Yeah.
all due respect, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I've been here in Madison, all my life since I was 5. And when Lowell School was the first school that had ESL when we came
Mm-hmm.
here. And we were one of the first children to go through that program here in the
Mm-hmm.
Madison area. Now, when we were coming up, and my sister was very, very active in this, and she
Mm-hmm.
strongly disagreed, and so did I, with the ESL program, because what they were doing was that they were putting anybody and everybody with a Spanish name
Right.
in ESL. Okay.
Mm.
And
That was a common practice in like the 80s, definitely.
Mm. Yeah.
Now there's like surveys and so forth, but that is a common practice. And if they're not ESL, they're considered ELL.
ELL. Yeah.
So
right.
you
Mm-hmm.
have this high concentration of Black and Brown students in a school that is low income. And so for federal funding, it's like everyone gets caught in either one of these two categories.
Exactly, for federal funding. And that's what we were fighting. It's like, okay, you're graduating kids that don't speak a lick of English, okay, because they were coming in as high schoolers, putting them through ESL. You were just pushing them through. They were getting pushed through so they could keep getting funding. And you want to go back and look it up, my sister made a big ruckus in one of the school board meetings when she was in high school because of it. I mean, now that I see it, I actually opted to have my son in ESL, even though he speaks more English than Spanish, because I saw that the program changed. Okay, it did change a little bit what I see. Now, when my daughter is 22 years old, and my son is 8. So there's big age. When she was still in school, she was thrown in there. There was no surveys. There was no nothing. Oh, her last name is Contreras.
Contreras, yeah.
You know, Araceli Contreras. That's it. They threw her on an ESL bus. She didn't even know where she was going. She was supposed to get picked up.
And that's the problem.
That's why I was like, okay, I'm going to give it another chance with my son. I'm seeing, you know, that now they keep them in the classroom before they were taking them out.
Right.
Okay. And so that was my question. It's like, why was everybody always, and then I do see my son is in special ed. Okay. And he receives his IEPs. And I do see that the majority of the children in special ed are minorities.
Including
in
Black,
his school, in his
Black children. And so that's
Black and brown children.
So the preparation, I think that what you're speaking of is how this institution, right, of education, particularly in Madison, perpetuates anti-Blackness by railroading our Black and brown children into, you know, into these subpar educational categories that really they don't need.
Yeah.
And I would like to
sometimes are mixed.
Just to like, now that we're in the school district area, I'm going to ask it, what do y'all think about cops in the schools?
Get them out. Get them out.
Yeah.
Like I said.
There's no question.
Yeah.
There's no question.
I just want to see, because I don't want to assume your positions, ladies. I don't want to assume your positions about police in the schools. I just want to hear.
Listen, I mean.
Defund police.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
I'm all for it too. You know, I grew up in gangster rap era. Okay. I went to East High School.
That never ended. That era never ended. Okay.
That never ended, girl. I'm still got my hoop earrings. You know. We had an awesome principal. I was lucky to have Mr. Nick Pike was our principal, and he was very strong-handed. Okay, he was very involved. Okay, and very, very involved, and so were the other grade principals. All the grade principals were very involved, and yes, we had security guards, which is fine. I agree with security guards. You know, I don't believe the school should be spending money that they already don't have on funding these contracts with the police department, when they can very well be putting it towards programs that can teach our children how to navigate their feelings, how to, you know, maybe grow on their interests, have the arts be more present, you know, the sports be more present, you know, all these programs, math programs, whatever you're interested in, be more present, because we're already
safe spaces to connect amongst themselves. Yeah.
Exactly, places to connect. And I don't know if they still do that. You know, I'm 40 years old. I graduated a long time ago, class of 98. But we had a lot of after school programs that kind of kept us out of trouble, you know, kept us learning, kind of guided us. And I think that's what the schools should have. I don't think you should be having you know, call the police if you need them. You don't need them there every day.
You know what I loved about McPike? Carmen, I'm class of 94. You know what I loved about McPike is, like, I spent time in his office. I'm nobody, and yet I spent time in his office. I mean, I wasn't really the troublemaker. I was the one for abortion rights and so forth. But whatever. I mean, we went through the Rodney King riots. We went through Becky and Perky dying. I'm like, we went through all of that. It was the hardest year. And what I loved about McPike was that he stood strong. And I'm nobody, but yet I spent time in his office and he listened to me.
Yes.
have
Nice.
principals, we have leadership school people that are scared of our kids because they don't know their kids. They're not the
like,
same.
And that, yeah,
that's
that's
it.
something I wanted to
And
They're
touch on the
from
last.
they're from a different generation. They never listen to hip hop. They don't know it. And like they don't know their language. They don't know them. Like the way,
Right.
That
yeah.
reminds me of the, why is there this over, diagnosis of, there's an overdiagnosis and misdiagnosis of mental health on Black and brown kids,
Oh God. Especially on
And
Black
the reason why is because exactly that reason, because they don't understand, like other cultures, they don't understand that the way that that our in Latino culture, the way that we learn is not always just like,
A, B, C.
yeah.
textual, sit straight, sit in one place, like be a robot. It's like, yeah, that might work for, white people, but it's not, it's like we learn through music, we learn through dance, we learn through, living, living in a different way. And I think that's all misperceived as like, oh, they're misbehaving. Oh, they're a problem child.
To piggyback on that, I actually got the opportunity to go to school for like 4 months in Mexico one time, and I still remember dos por dos son cuatro,
Yes.
because that's how. And
Yes,
I came back smarter than the kids here
right.
because I had this song playing in my head.
No, now you have to sing the whole song, like just for us.
I still remember that, and I'm like, because we were all excited, like, yes, we're singing. You're right. We're dancing, and that's how children learn. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's connecting mind and body, but it's so true. There is so much stigma and stereotyping, and there is no representation of teachers. There is no representation of nurses that are from Latino communities, that are from African American communities, that kind of like, and it's like you get into a home that you don't find anybody as a familiar face. How are you gonna feel? You're gonna feel like out of place. So there is a lot of what you are mentioning. There is, they should, MMSD and in general, school districts should focus on that and on learn about culture, learn about
Different types of intelligence,
intelligence, how different people learn, and apply that mind that they receive on that, on prepare educators to educate and to love, and instead of policing, creating programs, educating the families that come from different countries to navigate a system that is so unfamiliar to them, so they don't miss opportunities. It happened to me in the university. When I got to the university here, I was like so lost, like, because it's a totally different system to the ones that we are used to in our countries. So that's why maybe when you went to school, Carmen, you and your sister felt so lost because you didn't know in what direction go. They put me in this group, and now what do I do here? Where do I go from here? What opportunities are here for me? So yeah, I think that there is a lot of work to do in that area.
Yes, I agree.
Woosa, because we just said a lot, ladies. We just said a lot. I have been in so many conversations. I'm going to switch the script. We've been talking about education. For those of us who are just tuning in, my name is Araceli. I'm doing this Latinx, Latina, Hispana, whatever you want to call us, brown, talk back about anti-Blackness, anti-Negrura in our Latino community, specifically here in Madison, Wisconsin.
Eso me gusta, anti-Negrura.
Yes. Yes, it's a thing. It's a thing. We've been talking about colorism. We've been talking about colonialism. We brought it back to the school. We talked about whether we want police in the schools. And I know all of us pay taxes here. Carmen, shoot, you're a business owner. Shoot, you
Girl, I'm not even gonna go there.
You pay taxes up the yin yang, crisscross, double cross.
Yeah.
So She's saying she don't want police. I don't want police. And we lived through riots ourselves. I mean, we went through this riot in Kingstown and we did it fine without having police in our school controlling us. In fact, they wanted us to riot. Anyways, Giselia is here. Natalia Hilder is here. Carmen's here. Carmen, let's bring it back. I want to talk a little bit about the protest because that's another thing I can be hearing too much in social. No, but why are they destroying themselves? Who's gonna pay for that? The other day I was on a thread with, and God, don't even let me talk about channel 27, but they do these little posts and then they allow all these comments that aren't even great. You know, they're like super racist commenters. I don't know if they're bots, if they're real people that live in Madison. Oh my gosh, help us all. But regardless, so downtown they had put in defund the police, right, in yellow letters. And everyone's like, well, how can I pay for that? You know, why am I going to pay for that? And all this. Carmen, your store was...
Oh, it was destroyed, honey. It was destroyed. We're still working on it. And you know what? It was destroyed. Well, I can't go back. I can't, you know, we got to move forward. But, my daughter works there and she's an artist and she's like an artist activist. Yes. And she wanted to participate in the protest, and we closed down the store because it was during her shift. You go protest. She took my niece with her, and they went out there and they had a great time, and we try to teach them why this is important. Now, why I'm saying that is because when the news caught wind, because I did post it on Facebook.
Yes.
These criminals, because that's what they were. There was all kinds of from colors, genders, ages, everything. It was everybody. Everybody went in there.
I think that there were kids in there too.
Yeah. So when they NBC 15 picked up on it, and they did a snippet on Facebook, on their Facebook page, and they're like, oh, arrest them. If I was the owner, I would shoot them. And my daughter is answering back. We are not looking to get anybody arrested. We just want to see what everybody to see what happened inside her store. And when they were like, oh, if I were the owner, I would shoot them. And she goes, why would you do that? Why would you shoot somebody over stuff?
Exactly. That's
what. And so then they called us to interview us. And I said, Sandra, my sister's name is Sandra. They're trying to get us. They were fishing for a minority business owner.
Yep. Talk about it, girl. Talk about it.
And to talk about it and to be angry. And you know what? We're not going to be angry. Because we're not. Bad, of course. Who doesn't want, nobody wants that to happen. But, that could happen any day, every day. It doesn't matter. It happens all the time. So they try to get us, and we stayed positive. We're like, we wanted to talk about how it took us, it's very hard to start up a business downtown. Okay, you have to jump through all these loopholes and red tape.
And let's just be honest, Carmen, it's hard for a Latina woman to start a business downtown.
Yes,
when you told me that story, I was like, how the hell is it going to take you 2 years?
2 years to open up. Yeah, it took us 2 years.
To start a business downtown. Yeah. Let's just say that.
Yes.
We're doing and anyway,
and it got destroyed in a matter of minutes because they didn't just go steal stuff, which, okay, whatever, we have insurance. They went out of their way to destroy everything, break all our counters, our shelving, whatnot. And so when the news reporter came and was like, how do you feel about it? Well, how do you feel about Black Lives Matter? I said, Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with the people that ran in at 2:00 in the morning,
right?
Because no protests were happening at 2:00 in the morning, and did this. We're for Black Lives Matter. We're all about it. We support the movement because we've lived it, in our own way. We've been through it, and they were trying.
That's so sneaky, man. That's just so malvado, man.
That's with us, though. We've been around for a long time. So they did you know, like a little 20-second clip on the news at 6 o'clock. They didn't even feature us on the 10 o'clock, nothing like that. A time where nobody watches it. Because why? Because they couldn't get anything from us. They did not, we were not going to be that angry.
That's what we were talking about.
Black Lives Matter, it's because of the protests. No, it was not because of the protests.
Right.
It was not because of that.
Because racism, sorry, go ahead.
No.
No, racism, I was just gonna say racism thrives off of divide and conquer. And that's what they want.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm sorry, go ahead. Just,
you said something, we stay positive. I love that you stay positive, but you didn't stay passive.
Exactly.
You use that as an opportunity to say and to protest and to communicate what is that we are fighting for. We're fighting injustice that has been perpetrated for centuries, and our communities of colors are tired of it, but in a positive sense. And I really, really applaud that, because it's difficult. It's your life maybe invested in that business that you have, but the fight is not just for this moment. This is for the future of our generations. I ask myself, what this have been happening for years, for centuries. What didn't our ancestors and our parents and our uncles and grandmas and grandparents didn't do that we can do now? Different. So the structures really changed, and we move forward to a more fair life for everybody. And that's what we have to continue working together instead of divided.
Exactly. And I feel like the man or whomever, whatever you want to call it, wants to divide us, you know?
White supremacy. Right? White supremacy. And they've been doing this since they came over. Since they came over 500 years ago, Christopher Columbus. I don't know if anybody's ever, okay, I'm going to drop this down here. Anybody's watched what's it called? The Latin history for morons with
Leguizamo. That's a good one. Everybody should watch that.
I did see it, yes.
Did you see that?
He came to Madison. He came to Madison.
For sure. It was an amazing show. I watched it out twice. I saw him too in Madison, but it was it's just so eye-opening, and it's heartful because you finally arrive. You arrive somewhere with that show. You arrive to like the shores of like all our history that has been taken away, all the intersectionality that we have with our African brothers and sisters, and like how we were all colonized and meant to be split apart from the get. And like also to know that we are the first inhabitants of this continent and really owning that. And yet being Latinos, we're pushed aside, and we push ourselves aside too. I think a lot of times when I hear these Latino leaders talking, kind of putting down the movement and what's happened, what the week of action last week with Black Lives Matter, and I want big ups to Urban Triage, big ups to F5, big ups to Related Living Room. I want to
Brandy, girl, I've known that girl since middle school. You know, she knows me by Carmen. I went to school with her. I grew up with her. She's always been very boisterous, and I give it her big ups, for doing what she's doing.
No, she speaks truth, man. She speaks truth. I just take notes whenever.
I know. I love Brandy.
Yeah.
Lisa Payne Claire with the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness. I want to just give big ups to all of those folks for Freedom Inc. Obviously, they have been great leaders in all of this. I want to center them, bring them in this conversation and so forth. But I've been criticized. I'm not going to lie. I've been criticized, been talked about. And one thing that I wanted to check myself in my own privilege of doing this talk back and having the agency and ability to do that is that I'm not doing this out of a place of guilt. I'm doing this out of a place of anger. I am not going to put down the violence that has happened against Black Lives Matter just to elevate my sense of unity with this racist state of Wisconsin. We are the worst place to live if you're Black. If you are Black and you're sitting next to me, you are most likely going to be arrested in your lifetime you know, it's going to be like that. It's going to be like that. We have more Black people arrested in this state than any other state. It's honestly a miracle. We're not all freaking arrested. I walk around thinking I might get deported. These people are so gung-ho crazy. Last year, they did a bunch of roundups. Let's be honest. Everyone talks about, oh, los amigos azules y que yo los quiero, and I love my blue brothers and los amigos blue and all this. And I'm like, they stood there and watched it happen when feds came in, and they did not stop it to happen. They can't and they won't. They can't and they won't help stop that. They can't because lack of imagination and their lack of just, they're empowered. They're unempowered, and they perpetuate the system of oppression against us anyways. So I've been checking myself in my own privilege and all of this, and I'm not coming from a place of like, I feel pity for Black people. I'm coming from a place I'm angry with Black people. I'm angry for all the folks that have died.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Araceli, because one thing that I have seen that is kind of like different or is positive in a sense is that our allies, our people that have privilege are more conscious, and they are taking that stand, like not like feeling guilty or sorry, but they're taking action. What you're doing now as with your sisters, because we are, is like an action that is necessary, that you could not decide not to do it, but it's a step. It's a conversation that will open some minds that maybe didn't understood about Afro-Latinidad or being people of what people of color have gone through so many years. And if we don't take action, then we are as guilty as if we don't take action and we don't support and we don't do something, nothing will change.
That's right. So where are our Latino leaders at?
I don't know.
I'm not talking about like grassroots like Araceli, you know, and you guys. I'm talking about the ones that have been here.
Yeah.
And I think they know who they are.
Que están bien cómodos ahora.
Yes, exactly. Because I grew up with them,
right
and it was great in the beginning.
And that's what we need
Where
to.
are they? And I will call them out. Where are they? Because I did.
And that's what we need to do.
And like I told Araceli, when the coronavirus thing started, there's a lot of our people that are undocumented, that lost their jobs, that can file unemployment. So I reached out to these leaders. Hey, what can we do as a community to help our people? Guess what I heard? Crickets. So we did it ourselves. We raised money, we put our own money, and you know, did what we could for put our little part for the community. But I have heard or seen absolutely nothing.
Well, what I have seen has been letters, you know, and the most recent one was just, you know, I've seen letters. I've seen Latino leaders, unfortunately, come out when there was that superintendent Latino guy that was nominated for that position. And then we had a lot of Black leaders who were like upset with a lot of reason to be pissed off. We're very upset, and they wrote a letter, and then this Latino group wrote a letter back stating that this guy was very qualified. He has now since said that he's not coming here. I'm like, good. Let's pick our Black superintendent. We need one. Why not have one? It's okay to have a Black superintendent.
Representation, yeah.
When most of the students that need help, that need to see that vision of hope of them, of seeing themselves represented in in their school,
higher positions,
in higher positions, can elevate to that. And not just for the kids, my gosh, just for the admin and the teachers, the lone Black teachers in these schools. And lone, I say, because most of these schools are they don't know how to retain Black teachers. I happen to live nearby she's been in the school district 20 years. She says she's now the senior Black teacher in the whole MMSD. Imagine, she's like, why am I the oldest one here? Like, why is that happening? Why are we bringing in teachers of color and not able to retain them in our schools? That's a huge question. And I don't think that's going to be solved by having a Latino superintendent who's not connected to the most marginalized population, which is our African American, which are Black students. It's our Black students. I want Latino excellence too. I want Black excellence first. I want to see them solve that first, and they have it, and they just have it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to start first with Carmen. We'll help you rebuild your business. Let us know what we can do.
Oh yeah,
Please.
Carmen.
Okay.
I just, you know, like just.
That's what we do. We do community.
We have, and I appreciate, and you know what, a lot of people reached out, and I want to say, you know, I appreciate, and I'm so humbled, and I'm just, you know, I was full of like love when everybody reached out. Fortunately, you know, we have another business that's very established here in town, and I have a ton of employees, and we also have a remodel business and stuff. So
what is it, so we can go buy?
Well, we own TC.
So we have a comment. We have a comment, ladies, talking about that there has been a little bit of help coming to other Latinos, but we're centering Black lives here. We're centering what Latino leadership hasn't talked. I just want to be very clear about what we're talking about. That we're talking about how Latino leaders in our community have not stood up enough for our own Afro Latinos in our community.
Let me tell you something. When I posted all this stuff on my Facebook that got I don't know how many views and all this stuff, not one of them, and I know them personally, not one of them said, "Are you okay?"
Right.
Not one. Not even a little like or a little angry face. None of that. Nothing.
I want to be clear that this isn't about money, friends. This is not about money. This is about deep-seated relationships with our Black community. How do we expect them to show up for us if we're not showing up for them and their rallies and their protests? And how can we expect the Black community to give us money when they don't have any money? I mean,
well, you know what? Let me tell you that the Black community did reach out to me.
Wow.
Mr. Martin Lakey.
There we go.
Yes.
Martin reached out. I had a conversation with him, and I said, I honestly don't need any funds. I'm good. Let's concentrate on giving those funds to people that actually need it, you know. But I had a conversation with him, and I said, what can we do? You know, what can we do to unite? What can I do as a Latina, as a business owner? What can I do? And he said, let's start with our youth. And that's why, you know, I pose these questions about the school and the education. And he said, let's be role models. Let's teach our youth.
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, the fact that, that says volumes. The fact that no Latino, you know, so quote unquote Latino leaders, you know, like, how can they call themselves Latinos if they're not connecting with the most special part of us, which is our Black brothers and sisters within our own community? You know, it's
right.
Like they didn't reach out to you, but then African American community did reach out to you. Like that speaks volumes, you know, about how the Latino community is like in denial.
They are, and we are. I should say, not say they. I said we are. You know what? We are, and we have to, like, you know. I was never really like boisterous about all this stuff, and I just started after this coronavirus, and you know, when I started reaching out to people that I always donated money to, and I'm talking about a lot of money to,
right?
Didn't respond. I said, then what are we here for?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna correct myself. I should say the lighter skin Latino community is in denial.
Yes,
that's a correction. Sorry. That was because I'm, you know.
What she just said, it is our light-skinned Latino, because the fair ones are the ones who always are the position of power. We're always in the ones in the telenovelas. We're the ones that govern the rest of the estado. And it's getting really, it's hard. And
it's the problem in our community. I mean, the comments from our own families. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's so bad.
Where we should start. Yeah.
It's so the racism, and but I'm glad this is something we're talking amongst ourselves. That's something I learned from an amazing community organizer, Nestic Morris. She, you know, she taught me that it's like the racism within communities of colors should be talked about within communities of colors. We shouldn't be talking about that. To white people, the only thing that we should be talking about is their racism, you know, or,
Right.
you know, that's the main thing that they got to take care of. But these conversations amongst ourselves are really important because, you know,
right.
We understand it best.
I think that's what Brandy's doing with the urban triage, which she promotes a lot of let's heal.
Right.
Let's heal, you know, let's try to take care of, and you're right, I'm glad we are talking about this amongst ourselves, and we're all in different positions in our life.
Yeah, let's not lie. It's so bad.
It's not like it should be all these wealthy people or all these college educated people or, you know, we have artists, we have nurses, you know, you have me, everybody. And this is very important, and I hope, I don't know who's watching us or not, that we do need to talk about this. Let's talk about it with our friends. Let's talk about it with our families. You know,
that's our first step.
Why do we hate on each other so much? Because we do.
Carmen, there's something with the mic.
Carmen, el volumen se bajó un poquito.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. Can you guys hear me now?
Not
still a little bit.
Sounds muffled.
Something with your microphone. Where was your microphone?
Oh no, it's my phone. So I don't.
Oh, I don't know what happened. We can still.
Okay, it might have been my connection because my son and my husband are playing video games.
Okay. We can still hear you. It's just a little bit. Yeah.
Carmen, something that you. Oh, sorry.
I just 1 second. I'm sorry, Giselle. I just want to comment that I'm reading these comments, and I just want people to know that it's not that we don't appreciate our Latino leadership. We love you guys, but this is the thing. We need to start centering our Afro-Latinos in everything we do. But if it's promotions, if it's leadership, if it's their music, if it's their life, their fun.
Learning about it, learning about their history, our history, learning about to be sisters and brothers, learning about to be just one community.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. Marcio Sierra, I want to say that Psalm 46 Relief Fund was started with a Black and Latino pastor to help the Black and Latino community during COVID-19. We have raised over $360K together. Woo! Thank you. This is awesome. I love that he's raised that. And he went also, I believe, to the Black Church March that was over the weekend. I didn't know that much of other Latino pastors that were there. Maybe there were more. I have no idea. But I will say I was raised in the church, and most of las hermanas más dadas a Dios, the women that were most gifted to God and had so many, were our Afro-Latino women in the church. And this is, and earlier today, I just want to backtrack a little bit. Earlier today, I was on Instagram, and I kind of went off a little bit because I was very upset about Latinas in the movement, in medicine, in the movement nationally. We have not, there's a patriarchy that cuts through all of this too. There's a little bit of patriarchy that cuts through all of this. And it's, if you see a Latina leader, sometimes she'd be asking her other fellow Latino male leader before she speaks and makes decisions. And I'm like, girlfriend, you have that power.
Don't need that.
I have learned anything from this Black Lives Matter movement. I've learned anything from the movement and watching Black women in our community rise up to power, like Brandy Grayson, like Lisa Page Clayton, like Lolita G, like and Jackie Hunt as well, who I love too dearly. All of these Black women have shown me one thing: they don't need the guys. The guys maybe.
¿Qué es lo que dijiste eso de about el pecho? No, you have to say it.
We need to cut them off the tit. Ya le tenemos que quitarle la teta a estos hombres. Ya les dimos todo. Ya le hemos ido todo. Ya quitarlos de la teta. Ya le hemos. We've given you everything. We've made your homes. We've made your food. We've given you children. We've given you community. We've given you everything. It is now time for us to start making those decisions of where this movement is. Because if we had been making the movement, those kids I don't even think would be in the cages. But because we always wait, Latinas always wait for the man to say what? To say what? Maybe those kids wouldn't be in cages right now, my friends. Maybe we would be burning down things right now, and those kids would be free right now, and we wouldn't have the immigration problems that we have right now. But Latinas we just haven't taken the car for a ride. We just need to take that handle for a ride. Just like Carmen being, an entrepreneur and a successful businesswoman. I'm sure you didn't ask. permission, right? You just have,
no, that's one thing my dad said. He's like, no, dependas de nadie.
right.
No,
No dependas de nadie.
don't depend on anybody.
Enséñate y ten una educación porque te puede quitar todo menos la educación.
That's what our mothers and grandmas, yeah.
Parents. I'm not gonna say just
Traduce eso para los los que hablan inglés.
my dad always, or he still does, he always tells me not to depend on anybody. Education, because you can get everything taken away, but your education can never be taken away.
Yeah, that's exactly what, yeah.
Work hard and always stand for what you believe in, and and own what you say. I was talking to my daughter, and I said, her name is Natalia today. We were talking about what the mayor did. She's flip-flopping. And I'm like, either way, it's fine, because as long as you stand by what you say, and you believe in what you say, people will respect you. People will lose respect for you when you start doing that flip-flop stuff. Trying to, you cannot be afraid.
Well, and we can't please everybody.
That's a beautiful lesson.
Yeah, you can't. And you're right, I said you cannot please everybody.
We can't.
Not everybody's gonna love you. Not everybody hates you. But you should stand in for what you believe 100%. Because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will.
Giselle, you came from another country. Tú viniste a este país. You came from another country. When
Yeah.
you hear us talking, these homegirls from Madison.
Sometimes I have to really pay attention because you guys speak very fast.
No, right? We do.
I'm like, oh.
Because I didn't even know about these people, and now I know these people. And
What happened?
That's all crazy politics here. Giselle, what do you think about all these politics, all this infighting?
It's very interesting because I came here escaping injustice and escaping stereotyping and seeking for opportunities that I didn't find in my country. I have to say that I found opportunities, but I still learned that there is a lot of injustice, that there is a lot of stereotype and inequality here too. And that is something that is more blatant in Latin America. In Peru, like when I studied business there. So when I was looking for positions or jobs as an administrator or as a manager, in the paper back then, you will find things saying that, like, oh, we look for business students from this or that university with these features, light skin. It will be written on the paper. Yeah. So if you didn't look in certain way, my hair, for example, I never in my country, this is a protest for me, because in my country I never have the freedom of wear my hair like this. It will be seen as messy or dirty or disrespectful for your place of work. So when I got pregnant and I will become a mother, I decided that I will not pass that idea of shame of anything to my children. So I took the straight hair out and I wear my natural hair as a way of accepting and loving myself completely. But yeah, it is so different, but at the same time so similar. And the reality that minorities have lived here and in other countries in Latin America and around the world. So that's why we need to stick together and fight um, in a positive way, educate ourselves, educate our children, teach them to love themselves, so we can. I don't know. I am hopeful in humanity. I don't lose hope that things someday will change,
Yeah.
and I want to be part of that change. Whatever is it small contribution, but whatever is in my hands, in the small communities that I am part of, I try to be that agent of change.
So I think that your existence is the agent of change. Your
And
existence.
it's an honor. It's an honor to be your sister-in-law. Truly.
Giselle, you seem amazing, and I love your hair.
Thank you. Thank you. I love yours.
I hated my hair when I was little. I wanted
Ugh,
I
yeah.
remember telling my
Carmen, I've always wanted your hair. I perm my hair so
Isn't it
much.
crazy that we never like what we have, but we want
Yeah.
what the other have? Yeah. But
and
yeah, we need to learn to love ourselves.
We just need to
Girl.
love ourselves. Exactly. We just need to love ourselves. So we're going on to an hour. I know this is exhausting work to show up here. Gisela, perdón.
Yeah.
I just want to honor you and thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Through my journey in this, yes, I've been, criticized and so forth for taking this platform. People are like, oh, you're doing this for your own money, for your own thing. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm doing this. You notice I haven't even mentioned my business. I'm not going to even talk about all that because I want to show up as Araceli Esparza, class of 94 from East High School. My principal was Mr. McPike. The one woman who ever saved me from anything was a Black woman when I was about to get jumped on State Street. Obviously, I know that Black lives mean a lot to my existence and my thriving here in Madison, Wisconsin, because if they're not doing good, guess what, folks? We're not going to do good. Okay. And that's really what I'm about here. I'm not coming from a place of sympathy. I'm coming from a place of anger and definitely justified anger, as Alex G would say. I also want to thank Natalia Hilder for being here and for connecting me to your sister-in-law. Thank you, Natalia. And those of us who did not pick up the first half of it, that poetry that she read to us, literally
it was
love.
beautiful.
Yeah, can we close with that, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's end with
I
that.
think it will be
Thank
really
you.
good, Natalia, if you can close with that.
That would be amazing, Natalia, if you could close that. Carmen, thank you for coming and sharing your story as a business owner and just
anytime.
It was a pleasure to meet you, ladies.
It was amazing meeting
I hope
you.
we still connect.
And Gisela, yes.
for sure, and for exposing how white supremacy sometimes, or media, white-led media, wants to pin us against each other. And thank you for being that change and for not being their clickbait or their token Latina business owner that would be mad at Black Lives Matter when it had nothing to do with us. So thank you again for that. We're going to close today. We've been here talking about this for like over an hour. We actually started at 8:45, all of us, like from 9 o'clock. It is now 10:30, and we have a consistent audience. I just want to thank you all for those of us who've been watching. There's also Marta Araceli from Milwaukee. I've been watching. Marcelo, Sarah, Sierra was watching. Flor Mitchell was watching. So lots of Latino leaders were watching as well. And so I want to really thank you for the things that you've been doing in your circles to make Black Lives Matter in your lives and in the community that you form. So for me doing this, I'm just passing the mic. Feel empowered. Do it on your own. Bring your friends to this conversation. Make sure that you have a Latinx, Afro-Latino person in the conversation when you're doing that. I'm going to hopefully come back next week and have a panel perhaps of Cristianas, mujeres cristianas, Christian women who are also Afro-Latinas who will talk about this. And yeah, I don't know.
Awesome.
Big things are happening, and stay tuned. We will soon have a Spanish one as well. We're working on that too with the YWCA, and we're working to organize one in Spanish as well. But I repeat, why we wanted this mainly for our first and second gen is so that they're the ones. And English is the international language of business. This is how we move, friends. And we're going to make change. we got to do it. We got to do this for our kids. And I hope, and this is why I do it in English, because they're going to perceive this much faster, and they're going to hear people like Carmen, hear people like Yesenia coming from other countries and knowing that they can still live in their Blackness and their Latinxes. So, con eso dejo. Natalia.
Now we need to have more conversations like this. Gracias a todos ustedes. Thank you, Araceli, for organizing this. Just wanted to take a moment, just like we did in the beginning, but we should do this every day if we can, or as much as we can to, especially now, take a moment of silence to remember George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony Robinson, and all of the thousands of Black lives that have been robbed of us in the past hundreds of years due to white supremacy, police brutality, institutionalized racism. And before we take the silence, it's good to ask ourselves why. Like, why do we use silence as a way of honoring the people that have passed on? And I think it's because there comes a point where and when words become empty, especially when we live in a reality where too many false promises have been made of change. There comes a point where there are no words that the systems that surround us, the racist, oppressive systems that surround us, can't even say anything that holds meaning to us anymore. There's no words that can describe what the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony Robinson are feeling right now and will feel for years to come. There's no words that can bring them back. So sometimes silence and no words is the only way that we can hold their spirits and their names close to our hearts and our minds. So please, if you could take this last minute that we shared together to remember them as best that we can. Gracias.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. And with that, we end. Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Buenas noches. Adiós.